Hi, my name is Leonard Woods and I am a student at Kaiser University, and this is my Capstone project. My topic will be on the criminal justice system and the diversion program for veterans. My argument will be on whether or not the criminal justice system should treat veterans any differently than than anybody else as far as civilians are concerned. I have my guest here.
My name is Lisa Woods. I'm a business unit manager for a local bank.
My name is Monique Lewis. I'm a credentialing specialist for a local hospital.
My name is Robert Van Buren. I'm a biological scientist at Denver University.
Okay. As far as the diversion program is concerned that is already in place, the argument stands that many of the criminals that are in prison today are veterans and that perhaps maybe they should be treated differently. How do you feel about that?
Well, I would need additional information to make my decision whether I agree or disagree with that statement. But what qualifies or makes a veteran eligible for a diversionary program instead of being imprisoned or incarcerated?
Well, the diversionary program has been put in place back in 2008 by a judge up in Buffalo, New York. He seemed to have felt that there were too many veterans coming into his courts. So he put this in place because he said that since he's a veteran himself, he felt that, okay, well, let's find out why these veterans are coming in here. A lot of veterans have come back from combat with PTSD. Also, they have had traumatic brain injury. They've also had, there's even the ladies that have come back, women veterans with sexual trauma, and it's these traumas that have inflicted them. And when they've come back home, unfortunately, they're unable to get back into society and react accordingly as the normal person does.
What treatments can veterans receive through the diversion program?
Well, the diversion program allows for veterans to avoid jail or prison. The treatment that is received once identified is they can receive mental health services. They can also receive physical medical services. They can also receive funds for their bills, maybe even their utility bills. More importantly, they need that mental health treatment. The other things that they can receive is funds for transportation to get back and forth to the hospital. They also can receive employment. They can receive guidance and counseling just to even obtain their GED or even go back to school, as opposed to going to jail or prison.
What is the recidivism rate when compared to civilians to veterans?
I'm sorry?
Recidivism rate?
The recidivism rate for veterans nowadays, it's now for the city of Tampa, let's use that for example, 80% of the veterans that have gone through this program have actually been pretty successful and have never returned back to jail. 20% unfortunately have returned back to jail, but there's a reason behind that. The reason behind that is because there hasn't been enough financing to help these veterans. There was literally $150,000 that was handed down by the state of Florida through their funding, and $150,000 for the numerous facilities that exist for the Veterans Treatment Centers throughout Florida is basically not enough to cover all of the services necessary for the veterans.
So when you say 20%, you mean are they returning to courts underneath the same crimes? Like a thief will come back as a thief, or are they coming back?
I'm glad you asked that question. There are parameters for a veteran that would have to come back to the program. Oftentimes, you have to go through a drug test. You have to go through urinalysis, and you cannot use alcohol. Perhaps maybe the veteran got pulled over for a speeding ticket. You cannot have any contact with any law enforcement. So those might be small infractions that will be within that 20%, not necessarily that person being arrested or that veteran being arrested.
All right.
You know, I'm sorry, go
What
ahead.
is the socioeconomic impact of the Veterans Court diversionary program?
As I said before, you know, financially, we're hurting here in the state of Florida to take care of our veterans, let alone having a veteran go into jail or prison. It costs any state within the United States more money to take care of that person within a prison as opposed to having that person go into a diversion program. Once that person is in a diversion program, perhaps maybe that person can be a much more productive member of society and save the city or state lots and lots of funds.
With that being said, while they're in the diversion program, they can still be employed
Absolutely.
and still be an asset to the community.
Absolutely, absolutely, and we actually encourage the community to continue to be involved with these diversion programs, because we also ask that the mental health doctors that are outside of the Veterans Administration to continue to provide their volunteer help for us veterans or for those veterans, and we're getting that. We're just not getting enough of it.
How many treatment programs are in the United States for veterans right now?
Well, currently there's 220 veterans treatment centers throughout the United States, but unfortunately they are only in 27 states today, which obviously we need more throughout all of the states throughout the United States, because we only know how many veterans have fallen through the cracks that are in need of mental health service and are incarcerated.
I say you're talking about economically impact, but what about the social economic impact of a Veterans Court diversionary program? You know, the mental side of that.
When it comes to veterans' family and the neighborhood, if you take someone away from their family and their children, one can only imagine what sort of impact that would be on that person's family, because no one even knows that that veteran is the sole breadwinner, and he's been arrested for maybe a small or mid-level crime, and now he's taken the bread off the table, you know, bread out of the mouths of his children and his wife. So that is one of the socioeconomic impacts of placing a veteran in prison or in jail, as opposed to the Veterans Treatment Court program. Also, the halfway houses that exist for the veterans is one of the other things that is provided through the Veterans Treatment Court. They provide food, also clothing, and it's, like I said, the funds are not a whole lot. So the peers and the mentors that exist for this Veterans Treatment Program, each veteran is given a mentor. They've been coming out of their own pocket, you know, throughout the United States, especially here in Florida. That's why we feel it's very important that it gets out there, and that's why I argue that there really isn't a lot of money that should be afforded us, you know, or afforded a veteran for this program.
How many veterans are currently incarcerated or have been committed for nonviolent or low-level crimes?
Well, right now there's approximately 181,500 veterans throughout the United States that are incarcerated, and those are veterans that we don't even know that we don't even know have even sought out this program or see that this program is to their advantage, and perhaps some of these veterans that have been recorded, and these are the underreported and the not reported, perhaps maybe it doesn't exist in their states.
Is this a fairly new program?
This program started out in 2008. So, like I said, a lot of states, they really have not picked it up yet, but we see the value of it.
And are veterans made aware of this program?
That's another thing. When veterans get out of the military, they only get a 10-day course to simply drum up a resume. A veteran isn't given a whole lot before they come out into the civilian world. Most veterans have been trained to be warriors. They're not trained to type on a typewriter or a computer or learn computers in order to come out here and get a job. More importantly, they're not trained new social skills, which is very important. They don't know how to react to certain things. Most veterans, they want to help. They want to get involved. They want to protect. So their first instinct is to possibly break the law. Whereas across the seas, laws didn't really exist. They just
So, in extension to that question, are they made aware of this usually in court after they have committed a low-level crime? Is this usually one of the options that's presented to veterans, or is it something that's still not offered quite often?
It's in some courts or some states.
Right.
Hopefully a veteran is lucky enough to get a sitting judge or a public defender or a a prosecuting attorney that offers a veterans treatment court, but then once again that veteran has to qualify for it. And the qualifications is you have to have a DD-214, which is the document you get that states that you've served honorably and other than honorably. And then you also have to go through an evaluation that shows that you actually have some sort of mental health issues such as PTSD or traumatic brain injury.
All right, so after a crime is committed, in your opinion, what sort of punishment should a veteran get?
Depending upon the crime, I don't think that any veteran, and according to my research, a veteran is not short of the law. So if he's committed, the crime of course, murder, then perhaps maybe it should be looked at as to why he committed that crime. What was he thinking at the time? What was his mental health condition at the time? What was his does he have PTSD? Was he committing the crime in the defense of someone else, which would be considered manslaughter? But say like he is breaking into some place. Is he breaking into some place to feed his own habit? Or perhaps maybe to feed his own family because he doesn't have a job or he's unable to get a job because of his mental health issues or his physical issues.
So how important is it that this veteran be treated fairly in the judicial?
I think it's very important that a veteran is treated fairly because his issues are a whole lot different than a regular civilian's because they have had to deal with a whole lot more during combat than a regular civilian has. So a veteran is already under pressure, and mentally and emotionally he has a lot more to contend with. With that said, I'd simply like to point out that the study that was done by Dr. Eric B. Algerman, I wrote it down because I couldn't pronounce the name. He did a study of over 1,388 vets, and he showed that 23% of those vets with PTSD and irritability, they have been arrested. So that alone shows, that there's a nice amount of veterans that are out there that have post-traumatic syndrome disorder, which is a cause for a lot of their actions, which create criminal offenses. And it's not to say that it's correct, not to say that it's right, but it is what it is. Veterans do need Veterans Treatment Court to help veterans to get through what they have gone through overseas. At the end of this, I simply like to say Abraham Lincoln was the first one that established the Veterans Administration, and his quote really, really, really stood the test of time, and I just simply like to state that to you. His quote says, "To care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan. That means to care for the veterans that are out there, and that means this Veterans Treatment Court really is significant for a lot of the veterans, as opposed to them going to prison or to jail. They need help. They don't need prison or jail. And that's the end of my Capstone project, and I thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.